Perfect. It shows us live on our YouTube channel and Facebook. Okay, I'm just going to give it another minute. All right, so good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. I am excited to bring to you another live broadcast. We host these broadcasts on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to help you learn about the resources, information about our community, not only here in the city of Westminster, our county, our state, and of course, federally. Now, I am Juliette Abdel, your chamber president and CEO. And if this is your very first time on our page, I ask that you hit the like button and hit the notification or follow button immediately beside it so that you can get alerted when we do go live in real time in the future. And if you are a returning viewer to me, then I applaud you for sitting down and watching as many of these videos as you have. We've hosted over 250 plus to date. They can all be found in the video section here on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, Westminster Chamber of Commerce. Which leads me to my next comment, and that is if you are not already connected with us on all things social, we ask that you do so once you've hopped off of this broadcast. We're on LinkedIn, Westminster Chamber of Commerce, on Twitter and Instagram at Westy Chamber, and of course our website directly is westminsterchamber.biz. So different platforms allow for us to share different messaging your way, and we just want to make sure that we're getting you the information and communicating in a way that you can find to be effective. Now, we start off the week with our mayoral updates on Monday. Wednesdays, we generally feature some businesses that are successful in and around our community as a welcome to the network. So you can see the faces behind the company, behind the brand, and you can also support and invest in those that are investing in our community. Of course, we leave Fridays for kind of a round off of the week. It generally has featured in the past, it has featured our county commissioners to various departments at the state level. And we've also been able to give you updates from the national front as well. Today's broadcast, I have with me Ryan Gedney, and I'm so excited to have you, Ryan. See, I told you I was going to mess something up. This time it was your first name. I am truly excited to have you on this broadcast with me this morning.
Yeah, thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that have been going on in and around our community, our state. I would probably say the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment has played a direct role in some of the trends in sharing information and being a really great resource for our employers and our employees. So not only do you continually try and provide a picture of the state economy, but you also have various, I would say, offices internally that support different needs of not only the employers, but employees. So today, I know you've put together some slides, you've got some information that you want to get out to our community members. And what we can do right now is go ahead and transition to the presentation. And what I ask those of you as you're hopping on here with us to do is to start commenting on the broadcast. Go ahead and leave any questions that come to mind. If it's on information that Ryan is sharing, if it's just information that comes to your mind or you were thinking of and you're curious about, type it in so we can pull that our way. And Ryan, I have the presentation pulled up right now and the floor is yours. I already see Wayne. I see several of you that are starting to comment and hop on here. Keep that going and we will address those comments and questions here momentarily.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and kick it off here. Again, my name is Ryan Gedney. I'm a senior economist with Labor Market Information, and that's our statistical group within the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. We produce all the official unemployment rate, the job numbers. We have a lot of different programs, and we also worked heavily with the unemployment insurance division last year and this year in terms of reporting out unemployment data on a weekly and monthly basis. Today, I'm going to give a brief presentation on Colorado labor market trends during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to break this brief presentation into mainly two sections here. First, I'd like to show some unemployment insurance or UI trends for Colorado since March 2020. We'll look at regular UI initial claims trends as well as UI benefits paid. And then secondly, we'll look at labor market trends for Colorado and sub-state areas. And this will include a few slides on some Westminster data I was able to pull. We'll go over the state's official unemployment rate, some industry data, as well as job loss and recovery during this pandemic. To start off, this is a look at Colorado's regular weekly UI initial claims. Now, an initial claim is one that is used to establish or reestablish eligibility. So just because you filed an initial claim doesn't necessarily mean you'll start receiving benefits. What we have here are a couple, is the weekly numbers as well as some historical trends here. So the green line is the 2019 average. And that was actually historically low claims for Colorado and averaged at about 1,900 claims per week. The red line looks at the number of regular UI initial claims filed during the Great Recession. That was in 2009 and 2010. So that weekly average was up to 4,800, and the high was 7,749 claims in early 2010. Now, the blue line looks at the 2020 weekly average. That was an average of 14,300 claims. And as you can see here in early April, there were 104,000 claims filed for that single week. As you can see, right in early May, claims were very low. And then we started getting cases within the U.S. and Colorado. I believe Colorado's first case was early March. And you can see there's this incredible increase in claims as businesses had to shut down. We had stay-at-home orders, closure orders for several months early in the pandemic. And you can see here for the week ending March 21st, claims rose to almost 20,000. The next week, 61,000. And then a couple weeks later, to over 100,000. Again, keep in mind that during the Great Recession, the high was. As you can see, we've seen a gradual decline with some uptick during the winter period. Right now, claims are averaging around 4,000 per week. So while we've seen improvement in claims activity, it's still about twice as what it was pre-pandemic.
I have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, Ryan, but
Sure.
That is an astonishing statistic that you just shared. And this is why we were totally geeking out together about graphs and seeing numbers. But I mean, comparing just, if you look at that high week, I mean, that is crazy. It was close to 4 times as much as the Great Recession in that time period in just last year alone.
Yeah, keep in mind this does not include initial claims for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. Mm-hmm. That is for the self-employed and those not typically eligible for unemployment insurance. When we look at this overall span from probably March to July, we're looking at well over 1 million claims filed, legitimate claims filed over that period. So this dwarfs any type of unemployment activity we've ever seen. Prior to the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. Now shifting here to benefits, you can see here we have a similar layout with the green line representing the average weekly benefits paid during 2019. The red line is during the Great Recession. That was about 20 million per week, and about 100 million was the max paid out in a single month. Mm-hmm. And then the blue line, you can see that about 49 million was paid out on a weekly basis, with that high week during the pandemic at 96 million. So nearly in a single week, what was paid out at the highest level during a single month during the Great Recession. Again, this really follows that trend in terms of what we saw with those claims activities in the prior slide. And right now, claim benefit amounts are around 21 million a week, which is about on par what we saw during the Great Recession. So there's still ways to go to get back to that pre-pandemic level. This chart's a little busy, but I wanted to provide some descriptions of the other programs as well. Now, what this looks at are the total benefit amounts paid since March 29th. Really, March 29th represents that first week where we really started seeing that increase in benefits due to the pandemic. So overall, well, for regular UI, it's from March 29th to July 3rd of 2021, over $3.1 billion have been paid out through regular UI. And again, for regular UI, that's typical unemployment up to 26 weeks for eligible claimants. And those funds are paid through our state UI trust fund. The next one shows pandemic unemployment assistance. A total of $1.4 billion have been paid out during this period. And as I mentioned, that's available to contract, gig workers, and the self-employed, not typically eligible for unemployment insurance. Most of these programs I'm mentioning here, the next three programs actually that I'm mentioning were established through the CARES Act in March of 2020. The next one is the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program. This is basically known as that extra $300 or $600 per week in UI benefits claimants can receive. And it's really dependent on the period. From March of last year to July, claimants were able to receive an extra $600. And since December of this year, of last year, sorry, end of December to September, that amount is now $300. And like with PUA, this is also paid out with federal dollars. So no state dollars are being used for this. The next, and again, that's over $4 billion is paid out through that program. Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program. This is basically extends benefit duration for those on regular UI up to 53 additional weeks. And this is also funded with federal dollars, and about 1.1 billion has been paid out. And then there's a couple other programs with smaller amounts. A state extended benefits, only about 39 million. This provides an additional 13 weeks for eligible claimants, and that's also been paid with federal dollars during the pandemic. And then finally, this lost wages assistance. Those were extra weekly payments made available during the fall of 2020. Those were funded with federal FEMA dollars and a little under 400 million. All told, over $10 billion have been paid out since March 29th of 2020 in UI benefits. Unemployment insurance is its primary purpose is to serve as an economic stabilizer, and that is certainly a lot of money that is going to needy individuals. This next chart looks at comparisons since 2008 of looking at kind of those total benefit amounts paid out by all these different programs by year. So you can see in 2020, about 6.9 billion was paid out. And so far through about the first half of 2021, about 3.4 billion. Those 2 years are almost exceed all these prior 11 years combined. And here you can see in 2009, 2010, 2011, this is the Great Recession. Now, some differences are pandemic unemployment assistance did not exist during the Great Recession. And neither did the federal pandemic compensation that was the $300 to $600 extra dollars. So that certainly helps to boost this amount. But again, this was like an unprecedented global event that we were experiencing. And this final slide on unemployment insurance looks at the number of persons receiving an unemployment payment by month. If you look at the July 2020 peak, about 419,000 Coloradans received some kind of unemployment payment. In June of 2021, that number has fallen to about 200,000. But as you can see, compared to the peak of the Great Recession, it's still higher. And that's that green line we're looking at. It's still higher than the peak of the Great Recession, which was a little under 150,000. Shifting to the labor market data, here's a look at Colorado and U.S. unemployment rates. In February and January of 2020, historically low rates for both Colorado and and the nation. These were the lowest rates Colorado had posted since the series began in 1976. A couple months later, you could see the unemployment rate for Colorado went up to 12.1%, which is the highest rate we've ever seen in the state. There's been a gradual decline to about 6.2% since then. There's still ways to go to get to those pre-pandemic levels, but we have seen some improvements certainly since early of 2020. This is just a quick look at the number of persons, unemployed persons per job opening. I know there's a lot of talk about labor tightness right now and the ability to fill jobs. So this is one way to look at that, where during the Great Recession, and for Colorado in the U.S., there's about 6 unemployed persons per job opening. During the pandemic for the U.S., that peaked at about 5 persons, and for Colorado, around 4 persons. Right now, if for May is the most recent data we have available, we're looking at about both Colorado and the U.S. approaching about 1 unemployed person per job opening. But as you can see, during the economic expansion post the Great Recession, there's still some slack, some relative slack. When we look at the payroll jobs, a total loss of about 376,000 payroll jobs between in March and April of 2020. Again, just staggering losses. Since then, we could see a lot of monthly job gains, some losses during the winter time. But in 2021 so far, the state has added 81,700 payroll jobs. Overall, since April 2020, the state has regained back 265,000 of those lost jobs. So that represents a recovery rate of about 71%. And the comparable rate for the U.S. during that period was about 66%. So U.S. recovery is currently outpacing the U.S. When we look at by industry, the distribution of jobs lost, accommodation and food services, I think restaurants was the primary driver. Over a third of jobs lost were in that sector. Retail trade was about 11%, and healthcare and social assistance was about 10%. A lot of that was driven by, say, like dental offices that had non-elective, procedures. And so people could delay those because between March and May, you just wanted to stay away from anything public. Then arts, entertainment, and recreation, that includes like ski resorts, zoos, museums, things like that. That's about 9%. But you could see really where the bulk of that impact was. Switching to those gains in the first 5 months of 2021, out of 81,700 payroll jobs, accommodation, food services, not surprisingly, is our largest gainer. Nearly 50,000 payroll jobs, which is a very large number. Yeah, that's about 60% of that total gain. Arts, entertainment, and recreation is about 9,700. You can see there are a couple industries that are lagging. Retail trade had a strong 2020, mainly from the grocery sector as their needs shifted. But that's kind of leveled off during 2021. And construction payrolls are also lagging behind. This is just a quick look at the longer term of breaking out those industries in the low, medium, and high wage industries. And I did provide these descriptions below here. But you can see, again, like accommodation, food services is a low paying industry. And you can see just how heavily hit it was compared to that February 2020 level. So while there are some gains, both the Colorado and the U.S. have yet to fully regain those 2020 levels for any either low, medium, or high wage industries. But as you can see, Colorado, which is the solid line, is slightly outpacing the U.S. We have just a couple more slides here, but this is looking at the total non-farm recovery rates by Colorado substate area. So the blue are the losses from February to April of 2020, and the orange looks at the jobs added since then. And you can see like the Denver metropolitan area, that's a 10-county area, losses of nearly 200,000 in that 2-month period, and then gains of 135,000. So that translates to a recovery rate of 68%, just slightly below Colorado. You see Colorado Springs has the highest recovery rate, 89%. And then Greeley, which was hit hard by construction and mining losses, continues to lag the rest of the state. Just as I promised, some Westminster data. I don't want to leave you all without Westminster data. So this is from our, these are the official unemployment rates for the city of Westminster. And you can see it really trends fairly closely with Colorado, except during the pandemic, a slightly higher unemployment rate at 13%. And both Colorado and Westminster have dropped at or below that 6% rate as of May of 2021. So you can see the recovery is a lot quicker than the Great Recession in terms of getting below that 6% rate. This is just employment data for the city of Westminster from January 2019 to December 2020. And you can see the loss here from December to April. I added data points for April and December reference periods. Unfortunately, December is the most recent data we have available. So it'll take some time to see, what the city of Westminster or what the rest of the state looks like using this data set. But you can see that the losses mirror what we saw in the state. Right. And then finally, this is just a look at by industry, with leisure and hospitality accounting for 40% of jobs lost from December 2019 to December 2020 in Westminster. Information was also a large driver, but you may not think about this, but movie theaters are actually located within information. That was a loss of over 1,000 jobs. So that's what I have. I'm providing the last slide, my email address, as well as our LMI website. And I'm happy to answer any questions at the time we have remaining.
Thank you so much for all of that information, Ryan. So this slide, for those of you that are starting to hop on here, I see Brian Head. I also see Dinara, who's hopped on, and Jimmy, all of you that are kind of coming on and off. This video will be available for you to kind of pause and replay once we're no longer live. So you can jot down Ryan's contact information and the website either now or at a later point. And Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and pull this off so that way you can be able to see our faces over here. I had a couple of just good morning remarks. I don't want to lose sight of them. Wayne Anderson was tuning in over from our YouTube channel and sharing a nice good morning message to you, Ryan, and myself. And then our past board chair, Brian Head, as well, had shared a good morning note our way. So thank you, both of you, for tuning in and kind of engaging with us. We are at the point of taking up questions. And Wayne, you are entirely accurate. This is fascinating information. Thank you, Ryan, for providing this. So we're not the only two that are just like, oh my gosh.
And look, I had to hold back. I had about 80 more slides I could share, but we only have so much time.
You know what? I'm already thinking of how I'm going to loop you in to be able to hear all of that. But I had some questions that personally came to my mind that I figured I would go ahead and ask. We talked about job creation, about 49,000 jobs that were created in the hospitality industry as of late. We also showed in the previous slide before that was the industry that had been most hit with the percentage of reduction in and how many of those have actually filed for benefits and things. Are you seeing that? I know that initial slide was more of a percentage, but do you know the specifics in terms of numbers that percentage equated to, as far as, it was a 5% cut, which meant like 100,000 in our industry, and of that, 49,000 is now back on. I'm just kind of thinking from
sure.
Are we back to a washover? Is there still that discrepancy in the industry?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, I would say for accommodation and food services. So that's 36% of that. I had to grab my calculator because I didn't know the number offhand. But that's about a loss of 135,000 jobs in accommodation, food services. Yeah. And that is across the state. That is across the entire state. But a lot of those are going to be concentrated within a lot of the some rural areas that are really tourism dependent. Think about like March, April, that really terminates the ski season. And then along the Front Range, the metro areas. Yeah. So overall, I would say that accommodation food services is probably recovering at a similar rate as the rest of the state. Around that, like 68 to 71% of jobs lost have been recovered. Okay. So it's about middle of the pack there, but those losses were so tremendous. Something to keep in mind. So the leisure and hospitality, that includes accommodation, food services. So accommodation, food services like hotels, restaurants. Right. And then arts, entertainment, and recreation I talked about earlier. When we saw those losses in April, that brought payroll numbers for the state back to levels we hadn't seen since 1992. So it's going to take a bit to catch up, but we've seen some really good progress, as you've seen with that one slide, and so far in 2021, and I expect that to continue throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And then we talked also about the initial claims that were filed through. And I loved whenever you first shared that slide and you said this is the number of initial claims. Doesn't necessarily mean like all of these were approved or that they moved. Like this is just how many people up front had come in and had requested that. Do you know what percentage of those, that huge number, which it was a huge number that you were sharing, what percentage of those were first time applicants into the actual program?
That's a good question. I don't have that off the top of my head. And honestly, there's been some data issues late in 2020 or early in 2021, late in 2020 that make it difficult to parse out that kind of analysis. But I think early on, it was probably about 80 to 90% of claimants were new. They were like refiling a claim. But also keep in mind, like if, when I talked about well over 1 million people have probably received UI payments, like unique individuals, that represents over a third of our, pre-pandemic labor force. So wow. It's just an incredible amount of individuals who have been impacted from, job loss or impact to wages as well.
And we're seeing this trend. It appears like it's either kind of has slowed down or at least is starting to decline as well. Is that an accurate capture of what you were sharing?
Yes, relatively speaking. And again, when you're coming down from a level of 100,000, anything's going to look good. But I do want to stress that the benefits we're still paying out, let's say for regular UI, which I like to use regular UI because we can have historical comparisons. Mm-hmm. That's basically at the level we saw during the Great Recession. So those are still high. And then claim levels are still about twice as what they were pre-pandemic. So there's been improvement, but there's still a ways to go.
Yeah, no, that is, and that's what your department, and a lot of people I don't think understand that the scope of the work that you all do. So if I were to ask you to give us like a 30-second commercial about all the resources that you provide, but your hands are not just in unemployment. I mean, you're also kind of in the workers' compensation sector, the vocational rehab, and some other efforts like that. Is that
sure.
like accurate?
Yeah, vocational rehab. We have labor standards, which deals with a lot of labor laws. Our small group. We're also going to have a new the family division in a couple of years or next year, I think. So yeah, the department covers a wide range of divisions and topics. But yeah, you mentioned a lot of them.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else you did not get a chance to share with us that you wanted to before I start kind of rounding out our discussion for today?
No, I think I covered what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, I thought that was all great information. For those of you that were with us from the start, thank you for staying on, for hitting that share button so folks can see that we were live and can also gain some of this information. Of course, this video is going to be available for you to replay. And I know we went quickly over some of these facts and stats. I pressured Ryan to give me a condensed presentation, and he delivered fully on that. So if you need to kind of understand those slides a little bit further and the breakdown of what he was referencing, I highly encourage you to go back and rewind this video and kind of pause where you can, take some notes, and maybe continue on. And if you have any questions that come to mind after you really digest this all and want to send those in, you can always DM the page or comment on the video, and I can share that back over to Ryan. In fact, I can even give you his contact information to connect one-on-one. But their department handles a number of different programs and initiatives, including even the Jumpstart program that we referenced several broadcasts back. So a lot of things that come out of them, and we just want to make sure that you're aware of everything that they do. Of course,
Julie, sorry to interrupt. I did on our website. We do update on a weekly basis UI charts. Every Thursday afternoon, more or less, we update those. So some of those are very similar to what I showed today. And then also there are attached to our monthly employment situation report, a lot of cool charts and tables that you may also want to look at. And we also have that on our site. So just want to point that out.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. Thank you so much for mentioning it. What I'll actually do, Ryan, I know I have this somewhere on my end, the dashboard. I'll go ahead and just kind of copy your UI dashboard link and include it into the comment section of this broadcast for anyone that is curious in following that and gaining some of that information that Ryan has just referenced. Again, it's included right there for you. If you click on it, it'll take you immediately to their dashboard, and you can see some real time data that's updated and just be able to access those as well. Of course, if you end up watching this and we are no longer live, we love you and still appreciate you tuning into this broadcast. Please make sure that you are always kind of in sync with us. We're on here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays now at 11 a.m. So we will be back on here on Monday. I'm not lying this time. This Monday is not after the 4th of July. So we will be back on here with the mayor. If you have any questions for our city, for our community, and the mayor, tune in with us on Monday. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone. I hope you have a terrific rest of your Friday. And Ryan, I appreciate all you've done to be as resourceful as possible and quick. You honestly did not bore me, which is always one of those biggest fears whenever there's a lot of information. You're like, oh my gosh, how are they going to deliver it? You did wonderful. And I'm just so thankful to have our partnership.